Assalamu alaikum. Today we discuss about chromatography. What is a chromatography? Which kind of technique is it? And what is this technique do? First of all, we discuss about the classification of chromatography. But before going to classification, we discuss about what is a chromatography, and we define it chromatography. In the beginning, the organic chemists use a technique for the separation of the component from a mixture. There's a different techniques such as extraction, fraction distillation, and recrystallization. But these three techniques perform on the large scale, separation of the mixture on a large scale. But now, in the 19th century, a technique was developed for isolation, purification, and identification of small amount of organic substance. And this technique is called chromatography and spectroscopy. Spectroscopy we discussed in the last semester. Now, today we discuss about the chromatography. Now, if we who developed a chromatography or who invent a chromatography technique, a Russian chemist, Michael Twist, described the separation of the pigment, the color substance. The Russian chemist Michael Twist, what he do? Now he separate the pigments in the plant, such as chlorophyll, xenophils. He separate it from the different pigments separate from the mixture. Now the colors, they are the color substance. But after that, chromatography is a technique in which the mixture of the component is separated on the basis of the relative ability of each component to be moved along a stationary phase by a mobile phase. It's a definition of chromatography. But there are two things more in the instrumentation of chromatography. There one is mobile phase and another is stationary phase. And what is the function of the mobile phase and stationary phase we discuss now. Mobile phase is a liquid or a gas substance that have to separate the component by moving through the stationary phase. And stationary phase is a solid or the liquid phase in which our mixture is introduced in the stationary phase, and mobile phase is throw over the stationary phase and separate on the basis of the relative ability. Now we discuss about the principle. There are basically two principles that we discuss mostly in chromatography. One is adsorption chromatography and another is partition chromatography. Now, chromatography is principle what we discuss now. Adsorption chromatography. If our mixture is adsorbed on the stationary phase. Now, this principle we call adsorption principle or adsorption chromatography. Now later we discuss how adsorption chromatography work or how partition chromatography, what is discussed detail in after coming lecture. Now, what is retention time or retention volume? The retention time is the time required for the mobile phase to sweep a component from the stationary phase, whereas the retention volume is the volume of the mobile phase required to sweep a component from the stationary phase. Now, retention time, if we discuss retention time, is it that how much time required to separate the component from the mixture through mobile phase, because in stationary phase we introduce a mixture, but mobile phase sweep through the stationary phase and separate it on the basis of their ability of each component. And retention volume is the volume of the mobile phase that required to sweep a component from the stationary phase. And how mobile phase move, there are two factors that cause the mobile phase move through the stationary phase. One is that gravity and other is that pressure. These two driving force for the mobile phase that flow on the stationary phase. um, each component absorb on the stationary phase and dissolve the mobile phase on different extent. A component which is bound less tightly to the stationary phase and is more soluble in the mobile phase. Now this sentence we discuss now. What does it mean? It means that if our component that is separate is flow over the stationary phase. Now it means it's more soluble in the mobile phase. Its nature is the nature of the mobile phase is similar to the nature of the component that is separate. It means its retention time or retention volume is minimum. It sweep through too much early as possible. It's not bind to the stationary phase because it's not like dissolve like phenomena. There's a classification of chromatography we discuss from there. Chromatography, we discuss what is chromatography and what is the technique. After that we classify on the basis of their on the basis of their mobile phase and stationary phase. First we discuss about liquid chromatography. We classified liquid chromatography on the basis of their mobile phase is liquid, and gas chromatography in which the mobile phase is gas. Now there's two more classified in liquid chromatography, that is liquid solid chromatography and liquid chromatography. Liquid solid chromatography in which the stationary phase is solid, and liquid chromatography in which the liquid phase is stationary phase and liquid phase is mobile phase. It's that similar gas solid. Gas is a mobile phase and is stationary phase, and gas is the mobile phase and liquid is stationary phase. Now after that we discuss in detail in every classification.